Good evening. I'm John Bailey. The name of the program is People to be Heard, where people who have something to say have their say. With us tonight, you've got Allen Flissler, president of the North Street Area Civic Association, who moderated the debate where the candidates from one side showed up and on the other candidates, the opposition candidates, did not, and that of course was on August 22nd at the Women's Club, we're here to find out exactly what went on because I was unable to attend that evening. And first of all, Allen, you are president of the North Street Area Civic Association. You're a CPA, and you've been a resident of White Plains for 20 years.
Okay.
Now, why did you agree to moderate this debate?
Well, first, good evening. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure.
Our board, the North Street Civic Association, came together, and we were discussing the idea of having a candidates forum, but it was the middle of summer, so we said the turnout probably would be light, so we tabled that discussion. And then through discussions with the Rosedale Association, as well as the Gedney Association, they were thinking of the same thing. So then magically the three neighborhood associations came together, and we said, okay, it's an important topic, we actually should get this out. And then it was decided that the three neighborhood associations would come together to form it. I just drew the shortest straw. We've all had issues in the south end of White Plains. The Gedney Association has been probably the loudest given the project with Fasney. The North Street Association has been pretty loud with what's been going on with the firehouse. And the Rosedale has its own issues with some expansion going on in their neighborhoods. So I drew the lowest straw and agreed to moderate. It was a collaboration, though. We all reached out to our members of our associations for questions, and they just asked me to, moderate it. So,
yeah. Now, were you surprised that the mayor and his councilperson candidates nominated by the City Democratic Committee declined to attend?
We were surprised. It was actually the lateness of the response. We had thrown out 3 dates, knowing, to be fair of everyone's schedules this summer. We threw out April 15th, April 17th, and April 22nd to see which date worked best for all parties. There's 8 candidates to schedule. Quickly we got responses from the challenger candidates that they all cleared their schedules and can make all 3 dates. We heard back from one candidate, Justin Brash, that he could possibly make the August 22nd date. And we really never heard back from the 3 other candidates. Yeah. The Friday before, the assumption was that they would show up. We sent out a confirmation.
August, what were the dates again?
August 15th, August 17th, and August 22nd.
Okay.
And then the Friday before the 22nd, date slips me, we got notification that the mayor wouldn't attend due to, a conflicted schedule. And then Justin Brash, who said he possibly could make it, actually backed out, given that there was not going to be a slate from the incumbents.
But he was willing to come, but sort of backed out.
He said that he was free, but he'd get back to us. But then once everyone else didn't show up, he decided to pull back as well.
Yeah. So how did the debate progress? Because considering there were only Malaris Lacuna and her running mates, Alan Goldman, Michael Craver, and Saad Siddiqui, present. Excuse me, and we have a picture of the empty portion of the what happened there. So how do you moderate a forum?
Well, first of all, I didn't look at it as a debate. It's not my skill. I'm not a journalist. I'm not in that space. I was just moderating kind of a meet the candidates forum. That's really what it was supposed to be. Be a timekeeper, throw out some questions that were concerning to, the 3 different neighborhood associations on the south end, and kind of let the members of our communities actually listen and hear from both sides as to what separates them, given this important primary season.
Yeah. Now, how did the debate, the forum progress?
I think it went well. We were surprised by the outturn. There was probably about over 200 people at the Women's Club. Once we announced that the mayor and the incumbent council people couldn't again, I thought some people would leave. but actually people stayed and listened to the questions that we still went forward that we were going to offer up to all 8 candidates. And it progressed well. The structure of it was the 3 neighborhood associations came up with about 6 questions in a whole range of areas. I can cover that in a second. We let each of the members have about 90 seconds to answer, each of the incumbents, the challengers, to answer the questions. And then, that lasted about a half hour, and then we took questions from the audience.
Right. So, what were the main questions that the associations asked?
Well, the funny thing is that we know in the South End that there's a sense that there's only one issue in the South End, and that's the FASNY project. And we purposely actually stayed away from that question because there's more important issues. FASNY is a very important issue in the South End, no question about it. But it's got its time, it's got its place, and there's other issues that we wanted to discuss with the community. We started off with questions about the firehouse on Ridgeway and North Street.
Right.
Information has come to us that, the firehouse, which is a sensitive issue for the North Street Association, and we've been in contact with the mayor and public safety on it, where the firehouse has not had a ladder truck 86% of the time in 2016, and still, those numbers still match in 2017. And then we were told after they hired 12 new firefighters that we should see ladder 34 back in full-time service. Well, in the 36 days that the 12 new candidates came out of the academy, fire academy, it's been out like 33 times still. So we're still not seeing.
Still not seeing.
So this issue is a big issue, and we were do things in the South End, informing the community and also asking the candidates how are they going to fix that. Second topic we discussed was institutional expansion. FASNY is one of those issues, but there's other institutions in the South End.
Such as?
We have about 14 different schools in the South End. 9 schools, 14 houses of worship, and 2 or 3 critical, nursing facilities and the like. So fire safety is important, traffic is important, and expansion is important.
And any other questions along those lines?
Yeah, so there was 6 topics. It was fire safety and ladder 34. It was institutional expansion and the comprehensive plan. It was traffic. Traffic is a big issue today, even without some of the projects that are in the works. It was then parking and downtown enforcement. It was followed by then the downtown expansion and spot zoning. And finally, the last topic was collaboration with our school district.
And in a nutshell, I know this is impossible from your memory, how did the candidates that were there, Lacuna and her slate, respond to some of those issues? Was there anything new from what they have said so far?
I think the most important thing that I got was the paying attention to the neighborhood's voice, listening to the neighborhood associations, listening to the community, including them in some of these approvals or getting our feedback versus kind of some of the decisions that are occurring without our knowledge. And then it seems like after the decision's made or a hearing is to take place, that's when we're asked to give our comments.
Now, the downtown situation and the parking, anything new brought up by the challengers that are challenging the mayor and his 3 Democratic Party selected candidates?
Yeah, I think all candidates touched upon it, but I think from memory, Alan Goldman and Michael Craver, were the 2 that, Michael Craver, I think, threw out about 7 or 8 ideas in terms of making it easier, whether it's permits, whether it's allowing on-street parking. So the ideas were there. They're not vetted totally yet, but the idea of the dialogue occurring.
Yeah.
I think the candidates were talking about how the parking may be hurting businesses. We see a lot of vacancies downtown.
I think that's Mr. Goldman's position.
Correct.
Yes. Now, as far as what is being planned for the transit district, the White Plains Mall makeover into a large big apartments, public space, and sort of what I call a semi-gated community, semi-gated. And also the Mamaroneck Avenue and the Post Road project that has been recently advanced, and also, of course, the developing redo of the White Plains Pavilion, which has started. They've already raised it. How did they have positions on this sort of stuff?
Well, once again, we only had about an hour and 40 minutes, so we didn't touch every single issue. It was more of the, once again, the meet the candidates. On that specific issue, though, they did speak a lot about the spot zoning and what's occurring, and really coming back to a comprehensive plan. I think all candidates agreed the comprehensive plan is in need of being updated and then being enforced.
In fact, Ms. Lacona, in a fundraising letter this week, showed a picture of her comprehensive plan. If we can have that, should come up shortly. There's her fundraising letter, and then in the next picture at the end, yeah, there we are. And what is there any capsule?
Well, on that last slide, that second slide there, I think Mrs. Lacuna spent the time talking about a lot of these projects.
Yes,
and
right.
I think we've all who've been in the White Plains a long time get excited at the euphoria of these new projects. If you've been around a long time like myself, it seems like you've been in White Plains a while as well. You know, we actually don't get as excited about these projects. She talked about some of these projects as being zombie projects. They get announced, they get excited, they start, don't start, where are they? So the slide that she presented, which was very interesting, is talking about all these spot zoning changes that are occurring, and even as a council person, she wasn't aware of some of the statuses of some of those projects, which was interesting.
Yes, and did she express any anything about the Battle Hill section in the transit district?
There was actually a question raised about that and the importance of the inclusion, and how do you make it easier for them in terms of integrating with the entire community, how they're cut off through 119 there. It was brought up, an idea of maybe some sort of bridge and the like was talked about, but whether that comes to fruition, I'm not sure.
Now, Mayor Roach put out a mailer this week, which we should see shortly, in which he based his campaign on that he's governing progressive values and building a thriving city economy. Did the three candidates have positions on how the city economy is doing?
It was definitely brought up. A lot of the vacancies were brought up. I think kind of once again the topics we talked about were about some of the key issues that are occurring in the South End. But parking and people visiting downtown, the neighborhoods, and if you talk to a lot of our members, a lot of folks don't go downtown because of either parking, fear of ticketing, so they go elsewhere. They go to Rye, they go to Mamaroneck, they go to Portchester.
Go to Amazon.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly, or exactly, stay locally. That was brought up. In terms of I opened the remarks saying, and I've always said this, that White Plains becomes a tale of two cities. It's the downtown area and then the neighborhoods. And for me, it's important, and this is my own opinion, is in good times and in bad, the neighborhoods are always there. And so it's important that, we coexist. And I guess there's a sense of myself and other members about, is there going to be a further divide, as we keep doing this development downtown, have this aggressive parking, and then what it means for the residents. Are we going to actually go downtown and shop and eat and enjoy all those things? And it's going to be an interesting situation because of parking.
Yes. Are we going to ride our bikes downtown, for example, or take our cars?
Yeah,
I'm being humorous here. But generally, you want to take your car downtown, and you have to develop a parking strategy.
Correct. And then the fear instead of timer, and then having the fear of a ticket.
The parking fear that grips anyone who lives in White Plains. So what do? We go elsewhere, go on the internet, or save money by not buying anything. And the restaurants face the same problems.
Once again, the topic and why we brought up of parking, and then it was the aggressive enforcement, and then the over-reliance. I mean, the number that we had was 24 million, or almost 15% of the budget, relies on meters, parking tickets, or garage fees. Are we getting too reliant on that? And the candidates spoke about that too. And
Do
how do
they
you change
think we're
that?
being too reliant?
I believe they do.
Yeah.
I think, but you have a challenging situation with sales tax, which is what we're being told, that since the retail segment is having a tough time right now.
Well, it's declined 5% over the 3 years that we're supposedly, quote, in recovery, unquote. And that's the only real measure we have, is how much sales tax receipts we get. And
Personally, I think it's confusing. We've seen development in the downtown area. We've seen hotels. We've seen high-end restaurants. We've seen bars. We've seen other restaurants in the downtown area. Yes, the malls may be suffering, maybe this 5% decline. But when we actually speak about the firehouse or any other projects, it seems to be there's no money in the budget to deal with those issues. So there is a worry that we're doing these new developments, potentially up to 5,000 new units
yes,
being added.
Yes.
And another topic was brought up. Well, if you have 5,000 new units, and I think some of the math you did as well when we were speaking, about 10% of that is of age children. That's 500 new students. Do we have to add new schools? And what's the planning, and how have we been involved with the school system
Well,
to do that?
500 new students is one elementary
Correct.
school. And it depends on how they spread out, but you know they're going to be bunched. And that 10% is the Westchester birth rate, as of 3 years ago, per 1,000 people. And that's where we get that figure from. On the other hand, if they have more children,
Sure.
you might need 2 schools.
Correct.
And that is something that is really going to affect, school bond issues. But that is just speculation.
And I
they
think
have
that-
to fill the apartments up first.
Fair point. And I think the candidates that were there spoke about, the inclusion and talking with the school board and having these decisions of these new approvals going up for 5,000 units and making sure what is the school board's involvement from a bonding perspective, from a capital planning perspective.
Yeah. Were the candidates that were there, the Lacuna contingent, happy with the transit district decisions that have been made, and seem to be going forward rather, shall we say, well, we don't know exactly what we want for our properties next to the railroad.
Yeah, that was the topic. I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty of what's going to occur in the transit district. We didn't spend a lot of time specifically on the transit area. Talked once again.
Is it were the associations and the person that showed up concerned about that at all?
I think we're concerned, but once again, in this
But
forum,
on a peripheral basis, then
Right.
would you say they are not as concerned with the downtown as the south end?
I think, once again, the way we tried to structure it, knowing we only had 2 hours for all 8 candidates, since we only had 4, we cut it to about an hour 45. We spoke about the key issues in the south end, once again, being,
Right.
the firehouse, the institutional advancements and the comprehensive plan, parking. And then we did transition into wider city issues, but the wider city issues were really more about parking, the downtown spot zoning, and then the collaboration with the school district. So we didn't really have a lot of time to talk about the transit. That's hopefully for another day.
Yes, right. We need around 4 to 5 forums every election, but that's never going to happen. Were there any mayoral supporters in the audience to counter Ms. Lacuna's, Mr. Craver's, Mr. Sadicki's, and Mr. Goldman's presentations or positions?
Well, once again, the structure being we set up the 6 questions for each candidate. There was no moans and groans when those questions occurred. We took questions from the audience. There didn't seem to be, you couldn't really tell one way or the other. It was really more on the issues that were occurring. So there really wasn't, you didn't sense there was a large supporter one way or the other. There were applause, I won't lie to you about, if the incumbent candidate,
what was applauded?
Well, just their situation about parking or the spot zoning or the firehouse. I mean, they were answering the questions of our community, which was we shouldn't be ignored. We understand there's a lot of development and growth in the downtown. It's exciting, and it's exciting for new people who want to come to White Plains, there's a concern about what about the longtime residents of White Plains? Don't forget about us.
Yeah.
There were,
What, based on your experience doing this format, even though you didn't have that point counterpoint situation going on, do you feel the forums such as this that have been done in the past, and there's a new one, another one coming up, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, where everybody supposedly is going to attend, of you know, and so we will see what the. Do you like this format? Do you think their questions are relevant or too general?
Well,
are they softball debates?
I think that Meet the Candidates Forum, a debate is interesting. I think it's when you have 8 candidates, that's quite difficult. There probably should be in a smaller format. Maybe there's a mayoral debate versus then a common council debate, but time is of the essence. This is a primary. It's right after Labor Day. You know, the format is any good speaker, any good politician is going to answer the question they want to answer. So, I mean, the challenge is you can have the best questions, it's the follow-up skills. But I think it gives
be
a
an
good
artful
sense.
dodger, as
Yes,
it were.
well, you
Yes.
wouldn't be in that position if you,
Yes,
you
right.
couldn't do it.
Right.
I think it's important to understand the positions, and then show your openness by meeting people either after or corresponding with emails and phone calls as well to follow up on specifics. I don't think you're going to get real deep specifics in any of these formats. I think you're going to get the softball answers that appease to the masses.
Right. How do you see this South End coalition, as it were, Rosedale, the Civic Association, and the Association, advancing beyond this? It's my guess is that no matter what happens in the election, a vote will be held on FASNY after the election, and probably a decision will be made that we probably expected all along.
Well, I think it was
What
great.
is your situation as for moving forward and continuing to address these issues on more than just Election Day?
I think what you've seen in the last year or two is the Council of Neighborhood Associations, the CNA, has gotten a lot more attention. I think all the neighborhood associations and their presidents have been attending. Attending that meeting back in February, I learned about the firehouse was just eye-opening. From that, the presidents of the different associations coming together are great. It's hard to get messaging out, as you know. There's not much coverage, in newspapers and on television. We're all trying our best to get communications out of what's occurring. Sometimes it's the same voices, and it's important that we educate the community. So I think the 3 neighborhood associations that were a part of the debate, or meet the candidates forum, we'll continue to work together to actually make sure we're communicating. People are aware of the situations, whether it's the firehouse, whether it's parking, whether it's an institutional advancing and comprehensive plan, parking issues, and traffic. All these issues are issues that we've been dealing with now, even before the FASNY project is discussed.
Right. Did, just out of curiosity, was there any indication of how the Lacuna slate, should Ms. Lacuna become mayor, pay for the various improvements they feel have to be made in the public safety, relaxing parking? I mean, this is always, as a CPA, you are a bottom lineist, so it must amuse you that statements are made.
Yeah, I think that the comments being made, of course, it's a cost, it's a budgetary thing. Councilman Lacuna, stated that finding the money is really what's going to be her priority in that budget. The budget is vast, the budget is big, and where to find that. So you're absolutely right. It's a top priority, as she stated. How we find that budget is the details are still to be figured out.
Right, and we always seem to be able to find the money someplace, either from Albany or whatever. Now, was the matter of the rebuilding of Winbrook brought up at all?
Once
which
again,
has
the
stalled
topics
out.
was more in
not at all.
Councilwoman Lacuna's bigger chart that she had earlier in terms of its status and spot zoning and the likes, but not that specific project was not brought up.
Okay. So, did you feel the strong support for the Lacuna in the team's positions, or was there?
Well,
Mixed.
I think that if the mayor and the incumbent candidates were there, I think you know they would have. I think the community would have been willing to listen and understand their sides of all these issues. The firehouse, be that it was really a one-sided discussion. There was a lot of favorable responses, you know, from the audience of some of the things being said that
As
evening.
we often say, all you need is one truly bad incident. You're just not prepared. Like, we were very lucky in that overcrowded house fire a few years ago when they found 47 people living in it, and we got them out in time. Now, let's see, we come to the last minute in the program. Speaking as a private citizen and not just a moderator, and you very moderate, which is always nice to see in a moderator. What are the big issues going forward as you see it? Is the city divided, or is it just two cities?
Well, unfortunately, I personally feel it's a tale of two cities. What occurs in the neighborhoods, and you know, the South End is a pretty densely populated in terms of our citizenship. You know, in terms of what's occur in the South End, and there's a lot of people who have the same feelings about the talk that there shouldn't be any growth in neighborhoods. That the neighborhoods should be left alone, and all the development should happen downtown. Great idea, but unfortunately, that's not what we're dealing with. We've been battling, institutional expansions, not just FASNY. We have the German school. We have, if you go down North Street, you'll see either a backhoe or a construction dumpster, or you'll see construction occurring regularly. And the concern there is, if we truly believe that, we have to follow in our footsteps. And then, getting the people, the residents of downtown or the South End and White Plains to visit downtown, to use the malls, and not to be so worried about parking and taking the business elsewhere.
Well, Allen Flissler, moderator of the debate where only one side showed up last week. You have been heard. Thank you for being with us and backgrounding us on the attitude. John Bailey, for People to be Heard. Good night.